recording now. I hit the record button. So, schedule SketchUp introduction. Our class outline is Introduction to SketchUp, when and why, importing from CAD, layers, groups and components, basic modeling tools, and keyboard shortcuts. Under the homework and the quiz, you're going to have these boathouse SketchUp models. So those are old files, and I've already given you the boathouse SketchUp model file. I just don't know that everyone downloaded it because it's accessible to you, and a lot of you are in 108, so you might want it for when you go to do your 3D views. It'll just help you. You can use it to build off of. Once you learn SketchUp, it'll be nice to have. Last year, we built all the interior pieces of the whole drawing of that model, and it was a beast, and it shut down people's computers and was constantly freezing. And when you have a family and life or whatever else you're doing, you can't just be sitting for things to load all the time. So there's two versions of it, and that was because people were having issues with the 2016 version that had 2015, so I saved an older model that was 2013. It's the same file, just saved down. So like imagine if you had AutoCAD 2016 and then I sent you a 17 file, you might not be able to open it. I saved an old one and a new one, so that should dispel any problems that you'd have with that. I just wanted to make it accessible to everyone, both in this class and the other, because people in this class, you might need it for next year, and people in 108 currently, and also in this class, you might need it for this year. So here it is. It's pretty simple. I didn't design a lower level secretly. There is an upper level that I've put in there, but you'll have to figure that out on your own. It has the same wall thicknesses, it has the type of roof, all of these windows are at the proper sill height of the 36 inches, doors are at the 7-foot heights with the transoms at 10. So it's a really nice model to have. It's not so nice, we figured out when we started doing it, like I created all the exterior and they built the interior, and I came up with a better form of management thinking how a designer uses it. So even though I used layers to organize my space, like in AutoCAD, which we'll talk about today, I wasn't thinking about what needed to be turned on and off in order for them to do really nice, clean, crisp elevations in the easiest way. So this year, we're going to build it from the ground up, not this, a different file, and we're going to build it in a way that a designer would use a model most efficiently. So like for instance, I put all of my walls, I believe, on one layer, so like first story, second story, and then that meant that when I went to turn it off, it all go off at once. If I ever didn't want to do that, I had to move it piece by piece, which you'll see why in a minute, because stuff sticks to each other or is in the group that you created it in. And once it's that way, it's hard to go back and put it back with something else and connect it. So this is for your access, but we're not doing anything with it in this class. Two versions of that file, and then the actual rubric for this week's homework assignment. There is a SketchUp quiz. There will be a quiz for most of the weeks in SketchUp. So people who have a habit of not coming or coming for a while and leaving, it's just not an option anymore. You have to watch the whole video because the quiz is based off the video. And I do this because, one, it's not a very hard quiz. It's not very tricky at all. I try to be like buzzword, you know, when it's going to be a quiz thing, then I make it pretty obvious in how I'm talking. But two, to save you the trouble and money of buying a SketchUp book. SketchUp books are pretty expensive, even like SketchUp for Dummies, if we wanted to go something that route. And they're at varying levels. I've read 3 so far that the school has tried to get us to purchase, and one was just so easy, I could teach you those things in 2 days, and the other was so difficult, it's not what we need. So for me to just supplement in my own version of those books verbally to you, for free is the best bet. And then anything that I felt I was missing or could do better at explaining, I've provided for you underneath the session in extra videos. There are videos available from SketchUp itself. You can't really beat the SketchUp videos, okay? What my videos are for is I usually, or at least last year, I've watched all the SketchUp videos. I kind of condense it to work with our project, and then I also include homework instruction, which they do not. So if you ever, though, are like really having trouble and it's not cut and dry enough, they have provided free video tutorials in order on their website, SketchUp video tutorials, getting started with SketchUp Part 1. They're about 10 minutes, so you'll go through all the getting started videos of basics of how to draw shapes and how to draw lines. And they'll talk about the welcome screen. They do it step by step by step. So if you're ever having a question, these nice short videos are pretty awesome. And they're accessible in a format for you. You can read the playlist. You can see just on toolbars, just on layout, getting familiar with it. I think there's some specifically on how to build a house. You can't really beat these, and they're free. I also suggest them for people who don't take this class, so if you know friends who are wanting to learn and they can't afford this class, they could do that. Double click, triple click, explained. So I've provided this one. This is probably the hardest thing for people to wrap their minds around, and you'll see it instructed and played out on screen in a minute here. But here I've just grabbed onto the SketchUp Help Center, and what this is good for is in class I am still going only to explain it to PC users, but I usually provide links like this, and if you scroll down to where to use the tool, it'll say a double click if I'm double clicking here, and a triple click, and then it'll like break it down into for a Mac user versus a Windows user down here. So for the Microsoft Windows, it's control. For the Mac, it's option. This is like the main thing. Whenever I say control, it's going to be option on a Mac. Okay. Shift control for Microsoft Windows equals shift option. So you can see there again, it's the option versus control. So these are helpful. I try to have them handy so when people who are using a Mac at this point come to me and want my help, there's another resource to them. Toolbar in-depth video. I've provided all of the places to look. So like every week I'm going to give my video and then SketchUp short tutorials that can supplement my video as well and walk you through each of the tools. Keyboard shortcuts. So I've provided you with this. This was on the Facebook article, and the Facebook article was just saying like how can you most efficiently use SketchUp, and it was coming from an expert user who wanted to know, he's like, if I would have just known that when I was a student. And my husband kills me on this one because he's a graphics designer, and he's like, you have to use keyboard shortcuts. I cannot teach keyboard shortcuts in a way that's going to make learning profitable to you. Because when I go, okay, I hit the space bar, it's different and not as useful as me going up and saying, and now we click the arrow button and you can see where the tool is, what the image of the tool looks like, and how to use it. So I will not be using keyboard shortcuts. I might say, I'm going to click the arrow, which is also keyboard shortcut spacebar, but it's just not useful visually for us when we're visually learning a system. These are all available. There's nothing more useful than getting ahead on this. I think this was the best quote from that article, or maybe it was a different one. Practice doesn't make perfect, it makes permanent, and whatever you practice now is what you're going to create a habit of. So if it's clicking 10,000 times as opposed to using these shorter cuts, then you'll get used to that and it's going to be ingrained, and it's really hard to train out things that we start right now in the beginning. So please review them. They'll really be helpful to you. For rotate, tape measure is T. They're pretty intuitive. Push, pull, P, line, L. Some of them will be very similar to what we have in AutoCAD. That's what I like about SketchUp. Some of the tools are similar in the way that they're used. Okay. Other resources that are available for you. I've provided an example of a rendering plugin we'll look at in a minute. Differences between Mac and PC. This outlines the differences if you want to watch it. I've made it pretty brief and I said they're 90% the same. It's mostly has to do with the toolbars. So tonight, where I use the default tray, for instance, and it's real easy for me to find. It might be harder for you to find, but I promise you it is there. Homework walkthrough. I'll probably delete this. I think this is old. And now that we're not doing that building, you don't need it. So I'm just going to delete it out. All right, so every week I try to do this since we don't have a book, and then you watch these. You don't have to watch them. I really will explain all of this stuff in class. These things, though, these extra PDF and typed things, those you'll want to look at, especially if you're a Mac user, some of those things. So let's go ahead and start by looking at SketchUp. So I'm going to find my SketchUp on my desktop. 2017, here it is. I'll double click it to open. This is what shows up, hopefully for you. Usually you could click choose template up here or just start using SketchUp. If you click start using SketchUp, then it's going to jump right into, it looks like it chose architectural automatically. If I go back to undo that and just click SketchUp, sometimes you might have it really nice where it skips this check out the blog thing and it just gives you your templates. But if I click choose template, I have every single one of these templates show up, and then I have to be discerning about what I want to use. So the first one is feet and inches. That sounds pretty good to me since we've been working in architectural feet and inches in AutoCAD. It's not decimal, that's positive. The second one is meters. We don't live in a place where we measure in meters. Sometimes that could be useful if you were working with certain materials, like fabrics, for instance, that are measured in meters, or sometimes certain types of tiles that are European and flooring products, they might be measured in meters, and you could use this program to figure out a grid layout for those. Architectural design, feet and inches. That sounds good too, but what's the difference between this simple template feet and inches and architectural design feet and inches? And so that's really funny because I read 2 books, right, when I was preparing to teach this class, and an architect said the basic difference is that architects like things as clean and crisp as they can get them, so they changed the interface to have a gray ground, dark gray ground, and a bright white gray background, whereas this is green for grass and blue for sky. That is really the difference, believe it or not. So we're going to start functioning from this simple template feet and inches because we are building a house and it's nice to have an environment for it with having the sky and the ground. That's not to say in future projects where you may be like doing a conceptual model, you want to have that really crisp gray and white look to it. Totally go ahead and use this architectural design feet and inches. We're not working in millimeters because that would be too much fun conversion for us to do. And then same thing, they have the cleaner background that goes with these. There's construction documentation, like if we're making some of those sheets and layouts and we want to start in here because we know that's where we're headed. But really this, for us, why we're making this model is why you'd use it in a field most often, which is a quick, down and dirty idea, concept. I'm giving it to the client as fast as I can. It's not going to feel fast this first time around, but that's what SketchUp is. It doesn't look beautiful and super rendered in its natural state. It's just a, here, this is better than my pencil on paper maybe, and you can rotate it around and look at it in real time. There's plenty of other stuff. There's even one for cabinetry and woodworking at the end, but let's just stick with what we know. We're going to say right up at the top. That's got to say something, right? So we'll go with the simple template feet and inches and start using SketchUp. Okay, here's my guy. So right off from the back, I'm like, hey, this is looking nice. But when I suddenly turn the screen, well, weird, this guy's following me, which is creeping me out a little bit, but something's off about him. So I'm going to click on my guy, and then I'm going to use my rotate tool, which is kind of intuitive, right? We've got arrows moving in this direction. I'm going to rotate him, rotate, and click about the bottom, which will explain the blue and green here in a minute. Oh, he doesn't want to move. Okay, so I'll tell you why. He wants to stay front and center because he's like a paper doll. There's no back to him. There's no depth to him. He doesn't have any three-dimensionality. He is just a flat plane. He's 2D is what Gabe wants to say. Just say 2D, Allison. Don't make it poetic. So that's what you're going to experience, right? Things are going to get a little strange in here, and that's because SketchUp is a different type of modeling system than, say, if we were to model in 3D in AutoCAD. So before I jump in more, I've got you piqued interest. Now let's talk about who uses SketchUp and why. So SketchUp, you are always working in 3D. It does the shading and perspective for you. You use it for 3D modeling. It was the first free 3D modeling program to be offered to the general public ever. Before that, they were very costly and people were pirating other modeling software. So there's a free version of SketchUp and a paid version. As you know, you paid for the Pro version. The Pro version works with both Mac and PC, and as well as the free. But what we need it to do that it can't do for free is import our AutoCAD stuff. And we'll see it's a really quick step. It's beautiful using this import button. That is not a feature that comes with SketchUp Make, the free version. And that's why after you lose your license, once you're not worrying about going back and forth, it's still something you want downloaded on your computer, that free version of SketchUp. Also, the free version of SketchUp doesn't have layers for us to manage things, which makes things very messy and hard to organize, which is super important when we're using SketchUp. So Pro, who is Pro used by? This is important. I'd take note. Pro is used by architects, production designers, and other design professionals, sometimes cabinetry makers, woodworkers. All of those are groups of people who might use SketchUp. Only with Pro do we get the layout presentation tool that is loaded in with Pro. You might have seen it pop up and thought, man, did I get a bunch of free stuff? Yes, you did. It came along. You should have gotten Style Builder 2017 as well as Layout 2017. I wish we had time to go into this. It's really a presentation tool. It has a bunch of fun functionality, like you can create layouts and sheets like we did in AutoCAD, some white paper space where you can put photos and different material images next to the plans and your 3D models. But then when you click on certain buttons, your 3D models will come to life, and it's like this all-in-one visual presentation you can give to a client. So it's a good tool, but we don't ever have the time to go over it because this is just basic CAD and we're doing two softwares. This comes with a number of tutorials, and you'll see them kind of pop up sometimes when you're using your tools. I'm going to maximize this for a minute. So like, let's say right now I have the rotate guy and I'm doing stuff. There's also in the corner, this one, I think. I have to sign in. Hold on, let me escape out. This model, geolocated, credits, sign in. Maybe it'll just pop up in a minute. Maybe this is different in 2017. There's a little tutorial guy, and it's kind of obnoxious actually. But sometimes when you click on a new tool for the first time, it's going to pop up. And if I can't find it today, then I'll show you later. It usually happens in real time from our default tool. So our default tray that's open to the side and showing over here. Instructor, here it is, that little guy. So if I scroll down to the instructor, I right now have the move tool, which looks very similar to our AutoCAD, right? Our kind of cross axes. If I have my move tool here, I can read to the side from my instructor how to use it. We have these in here, just like when we hover in AutoCAD over the tools, we oftentimes get these instructor tutorials, and then we have the videos that I showed you that are accessible from their website. So 3D software, there's two types, and they deal with two types of models. There's solid and there's surface. SketchUp deals with surfaces. So what I mean by that is if I create this, and we talked about our guy is 2D, right? And it's right now just a little flat paper-like rectangle on the screen. I have also a push-pull tool. The push-pull tool push and pull the face of entities to sculpt 3D models. If I click in the middle of my rectangle here and I pull up and click again to stop, now it says, look in the bottom right hand corner. I don't know if it'll disappear when I drag over there. See this pick face to push or pull, control, toggle, create a new starting face. So this is very similar to our command line, right? So I want you to get in use of this as it is like AutoCAD so that you're not feeling too at home in this environment. This is our command line down here. It's prompting me kind of what tool I'm using, how to use it. Over here I can see the distance that was push-pulled up, and then I have my main home that I can go to for all of my tools in the upper left-hand corner. But something's weird about this. Just like my guy, there's an eerie something going on here. If I click on this face, because it's not solid, it's empty on the inside. In AutoCAD, if I was to create a box, it would be solid, like a bunch of clay all the way through, so I could do a slice and a slice and a slice, and I'd always have a solid going back, not this empty abyss, because it's made up of a bunch of different surfaces, which we will talk about as faces. Okay? I'm going to go ahead for now and close up my rectangle, and then we'll come back and talk about them in a little bit. But you can see that it does shade in real time, right? As I rotate around my rectangle, I can see the top is in shadow. Now that I'm hovering above, the sides are in shadow. So it gives me a good idea of if I'm moving as a light source would be pointed, where the different shadows will fall. Although there's no shadow underneath it, we can create shadows using a light source brought in, such as placing our sun and setting the time of day, or creating artificial ones when we go to use some of those rendering programs. So SketchUp Pro does have some limited use of solid features, where I was talking about this wouldn't be empty on the inside, but that is considered extremely advanced, something that mostly engineers use, and we will not be diving into that in my class. There's another breakdown of curved modelers and polygonal modelers. What I mean by that is, so we've broken it down in, I could either have solid modeling or this that happens when I'm working with faces. And then I could either have a curve modeler or a polygonal modeler. I'll show you what that means. When I go to use my curve or my arc here, 2-point arc tool, notice, click for the arc tool. You can drop down the arrow, 2-point arc, very similar to AutoCAD. And I created a point and a point. When we zoom in, and you don't have to zoom in very far, it's not like AutoCAD to see. They're not trying to hide this problem. It's not even a problem for them. Each of this segment of the curve is more rectilinear because SketchUp is made up of polygons. Even its curviest pieces, while they might appear in some of these things you download, such as comfy, cozy pieces of furniture with their arms curved, they are really just a series of squared off polygonal lines. Nothing is ever truly curved. So what makes SketchUp different is it's both a modeler of faces and a polygonal modeler. Everything is made up of multiple segments that are attached together to create faces and shapes. So really, nothing is ever curved, it's just faking curves. What are some of the good things about using SketchUp versus using AutoCAD? So here we get to actually model things with color and materials that can be applied to them, even as real as adding photographs into the frames of our artwork. We can choose manufacturer's tiles and finishes to apply to the walls, the furniture, the floor, wood grains, paint, anything you can think of, we can do it. Is it going to be absolutely beautiful? Not necessarily. We'll go into that in a minute. It allows us to share models unlike any other program. So up here, this button where it looks like SketchUp's icon popping out of a box, it says you can open the 3D warehouse. Clicking into the 3D warehouse, you're gonna be overwhelmed by just how amazing it is. So when I said originally there was nothing open to the public, this was the first 3D model system that was. What they were seeing is people having some programs and then people coming in and stealing a chair from here or a 3D model of a church from here. And it was like, why are we stealing these things when we should all come together and just dump, like have a place where good, the bad, the ugly, we dump our creative thinking into a usable, accessible point for everyone and share our knowledge. And that's what was created with SketchUp Warehouse. So manufacturers have adopted this, even as if I go out to, and I'm going to always do Herman Miller, so get used to it. So if I go to Herman Miller and they're like a big manufacturer that's has nothing to do with SketchUp. It's just like AutoCAD, how we can download those different 2D blocks and 3D design products. We can also come in here to our 3D models, and where it says Revit or Living Office Typical Design Solutions, you saw that when I clicked on this earlier to bring it in from an earlier week, and I click on one of these and I want to go to my downloads, they have a SketchUp option. And I can bring in my SketchUp option quickly. It downloads in the corner and I can open the file, choose a template, and start using it right away. And look how much information's brought in. So if I took this and I already had a, let's say, 9 by 12 room, and I copied this in, bam, there's one whole elevation and 3D that I have, well, really 2 elevations, 1 3D that I have to use for my project. No time spent except for me applying the materials. And there's nothing wrong about that if this is the application that works for your space. Work smarter, not harder. So, I really suggest these things to you, that you explore the manufacturers that are out there and what programs that we're teaching you that you can use their product with. And then when we get into the fun stuff, you'll see it's as easy as clicking into the group, getting down to the surface, and we can start editing all of our materials. So I could pick metal and repaint this, and then when I go to use my mouse tool to click out and hit escape, now I have a metal screen. Things are easily modifiable, so like I could just steal maybe the marker board from here if I don't care about Herman Miller, but I needed a good marker board, and modify it to be what I need it to be by stretching it and pulling it. So you can see the advantages of this company allowing us such access to their models and high quality models because of the manufacturers that bought into this idea and concept. If I go back out to our 3D warehouse, I mean, I could type in pretty much anything. And the other thing is, here you see Broad Street Marketplace. They have a global positioner. You saw that weird thing in the lower corner of my SketchUp where it says this doesn't have a global geolocated portion to it. I knew a student when I went through here, he did the whole Ivy Tech building and then he posted to SketchUp, and now you can find it and it's at our location. So like people will take the map locations, Kingdom Center, and they'll do a 3D model based off of that map location. It's really quite awesome, the capabilities of this software, as simple as it is at face value. I could type in sofa. And this is where you need to start learning efficiencies of, sometimes you get a concept or like an inspiration and you start from there. I like to start with models because I know I have them at my fingertips, and how can I modify them? Or like I find a sofa in here and then I go out and I find my inspiration to match the kind of things I can build quick models for when I have a tight deadline. So learn to use the tools that are at hand, but they really have, I mean, sofas will go on for days, literally. You could click, click, click through here for the rest of your life. I feel like at this point it's been up for 10 plus years. They've got sofas that you can think of. So whatever you do find in your inspiration, you should be able to find something close enough that you just need to tweak it a little bit. All right, so I do want you to be aware that it's open source. So the worst nightmare of an open source program is that there is good and there is bad. You're going to get in some of these models, and some people followed all the rules and things are nicely put together, and it's as easy as clicking on the back of this sofa and I paint it pink, and then clicking on the seat and I paint it brown. But some people don't work that way, and they just threw what looks nice in, and you get 500 different pieces in here that you have to paint individually and spend all your time. What I'd say is the moment you realize that, delete the model and pick a different one that's going to work instead of wasting your time on that junky model. All right, so that's the warehouse. We're going to do more with that when we get to the furniture portion of our homework in a couple of weeks. But let's go back to our basics. So I've got to get through just some more about SketchUp as a program. It does not naturally render photorealistic at all. What we're looking at now is more sketchy, and there's other ways to set up our drawing so that it has a different look to it. And it can look like somebody's hand drawn it. We'll do that in a couple weeks, but it's not what I'd consider to be realistic. It's more like if I was going to draw, maybe from AutoCAD even have a very similar appearance, but it's still, I think, visually appealing. And what I like to tell students who don't like this look and the free non-plugin version is just do it like this, and then we can change it to be white and black, and you can print it off and hand render over the top of it to make it look more realistic, and you still save yourself time of not figuring out how to draw the 3D, 2D perspective of that. So there's a lot of ways to go about it, but it's still pretty in my opinion at face value. So if we wanted it to look prettier, we could go out to the link that I've shared with you in this week's homework under extra videos, and you can see more about an example of a rendering program, which here's what SketchUp will look like when you finish a room, and it looks pretty nice. They can smooth this out easily without a rendering tool. So it could look even better than what they're showing it. But once they run this quick plugin, and it makes it through the process, it can look just like a real space, what you'd see at the end of the HGTV design shows. And Chip and Joanna, they use this with a plugin. So initially they'll show this version, and then the end product is them using a plugin. So it does some pretty lovely things. You can see other examples over here in the right-hand side. Now plugins, they can vary from $24 to $100. I mean, for $25 you can get one that pretty much does what we're seeing here. And I think that's like hardly anything to pay to get my project to look like that, even if I only have it for a year. It's worth the 2 weeks or whatever it takes to make some money to do that kind of thing. So I would recommend it if you want to use this for 108, that we explore it as an option. And you can try plugins with week-long subscriptions to see if you want to buy it first. So you don't have to commit and pay them before you can see if you even like what the program does. They usually have a trial run at it. It just puts a big stamp on it afterwards so that you can't use the image. Another thing I want to talk about, and I got out of the warehouse quicker than I wanted to. Oh, good. Let's do stair dynamic. Okay, so dynamic stairs. If you download a dynamic component, and we'll see, I'm a little rusty, it's been a while. They have opportunities to, let's see, let me use my scale and see if it's as easy as doing that. So I don't know that it will. Basically, if I get the grips on it and I start pulling this way, it'll just keep adding more stairs and more stairs, but at the appropriate rise over run. so you don't have to do the math and calculations as to why that stair works out. Or if you pull it down, it'll make the stairs deeper, as that changes with the rise and run just as much as it will if you make them longer and taller. So to not have to do that portion of calculating because the math is set up for you is a pretty awesome thing. You do want to check the math behind it though initially. We can talk about that in a future week because we're going to create a stair like this. We're going to do 3 types of stairs. And you can see how they set up their rise over run, so at least you know what you're doing. If Joe next door, who doesn't know anything about SketchUp, could have created this. So to just trust it off the bat is a little sketchy, haha. But we know that most of the time, someone who's going to put this much effort into building a dynamic component that changes as we stretch it, they probably know what they're doing, okay? So I'll delete that guy out for a minute. Getting started, now we're going to do just a basic SketchUp tour. So here is our select tool. Just like in AutoCAD, we do want to have a basic mouse tool. It just matches my mouse. Whenever you want to do something besides editing or modifying anything on the screen, you just come back up here, grab this guy. He's your home base. He's my, okay, I just want to click on something to see what it's doing, or click on a face, click on a line, highlight it, and then start using my actual tools to modify it. We have File, just like you do with every other program. It has similar things. New, we could start a new SketchUp file. I want to say this is true. If I click New, and then I save this and everything, it's going to close this completely out. So it's not going to open a new one next to this file, right? We can't have 2 open at once by doing that. If you want to have 2 SketchUp files at once, this is where the clicky mouse comes in. So just like having a scroll mouse for AutoCAD is very necessary, it's just as useful in my SketchUp. It's allowing me with my scroll at the center of my mouse to zoom in and out and really quickly. I can press down the scroll to pan in and around. And then if I click to one side or zoom out at the same time, it's a pretty useful tool. I could do all of those things up here as well. So we have our zoom extents. One second. Okay, we have zoom extents, which is going to show everything on the screen, which is my guy over here and my block. So right now it's forcing me to look at the guy in the block. If I move the guy over to be nearer the block, and then as it hit zoom extents, it's going to show me the guy in the block right here. So you don't have to have a scroll mouse, but your life is going to be very hard without it. I can also use orbit to turn around, whereas I would hold the center clicker of my mouse and then move my mouse in order to orbit with just the mouse. So the tools are there, they just take more. As opposed to this really quick zoom in, zoom out, we'd have to use our zoom and zoom, zoom, zoom by clicking, which is no fun. Let's all get a scroll mouse if we don't have one already. Okay, so up here under File, what I was going to get up, we can either go New and have it close this out, save it somewhere, and start a new one. Or with the clicker mouse, if you click on this icon down here and I click the center of my mouse, that allows me to start a full new open one, so I could have 2 comparative models next to each other, which is awesome. And your clicker mouse works that way with most things. So I could do the same thing on AutoCAD, sometimes the same thing with Chrome. It's going to duplicate something that's already open. I don't know a better way. If you do, you can type it in the chat to duplicate besides using a clicker on a mouse. I don't know that you can right click and do the same kind of thing. So if I wanted to, I could just have this going, but I already have an untitled that I'm working in, so I'm going to continue working in it. All right, so we have save and save as. These are the 2 things that we're going to use. We're not going to use save as template ever. The other thing that's important to us is going to be import for this week's homework. And eventually, if you want to print, we'll use some print. But other than that, the geolocation, 3D warehouse, there's a button out here that's easy for us to access. We don't need Trimble Connect. We don't need really anything. We will use export at the end to get it back into AutoCAD. So this is the most usability of that we need. Under edit, undo might be one of your new best friends. It is in most of the other programs, so I can just click edit, undo move, and then my guy went back to being where he was before. We have cut, paste, paste in place. So if I was to click on this and do edit, cut, it moved my rectangle. So it's very similar to any other program where we're cutting and pasting either text or objects. I could paste. If I paste and just hit paste, notice I'm free floating out here. If I hit edit, paste in place, it goes right back onto the box that it came from, which is kind of nice. So different usability, same sound of tool. We have delete, delete guides, select all, select none, hide, unhide. Hiding and unhiding is where, let's say I don't want to see certain geometry. I could also right click on it and click hide, or I could come up here to edit, hide, and notice now it's a nice clean smooth edge. I don't have to look at that dark outliner. Now if I go to view hidden geometry, it'll show me which lines I've hidden compared to which lines are still solid, and notice it's denoted with a dashed line for hidden. So right now I'm going to edit, undo, hide because I want to keep my edge there for teaching purposes. Okay, so I did want to talk about this default tray to the right. We can get to him, as you will see when we go through all of these tabs, but he most likely will be open on the right side of your screen when you start up your program. If not, let's talk about how to get him back, because he's one of the most important things that we have in this program. And Mac users, you might in the background just want to be looking around in here for where this is at. If I hit the X button and my life has ended because I can't find him, I need to go up to Window, Default Tray, Show Tray, and here he is again. And there's plenty of stuff for us to cover on here. I have materials, components, styles, layers, shadows, scenes. Drop arrows work just like in AutoCAD, so they reveal things that were hidden to us. The things that you could go ahead and close to use for this week are, we don't need the instructor unless you want him. We don't need scenes or shadows. We don't need styles, components, or materials. Let's just stick with keeping layers open for our homework portion. And this is really a place that's kind of like in AutoCAD, how they wanted us to set up that menu to the side where I said we could have an easy access to all of our tools. We really do need it here. It's much more it's quicker to use this tool in here than going up and clicking window and then clicking default tray. It used to just be like layers and then you'd click each individual. You can add things to that bar over there by clicking on the different things under the window default tray. You can also take them away by removing them. So now the instructor is gone. All right, so we'll bring him up one more time when we get to that part of the menu. View, section planes, hidden geometry, section cuts, access guides. This won't really matter to us for this week. Don't mess with any of it. Let's just leave it as is, and it'll be okay for the homework going forward until we have extra furniture and stuff with lines to hide. Camera. So the most usage that you'd want to use this for is standard views this week if you want to kind of visually look at your house from different vantage points. We're going to do top, which is basically bird's eye down. I'm looking at the very top of my rectangle, flat. I can do standard view front. And remember, our guy was here in the corner. This corner where these axes meet, the blue line's up, the green lines going back and the red lines going to the right, means that we're back to the starting view of SketchUp. And usually when we import things, they're going to come in right at this corner. And for your homework, we're going to keep it there. So here is the front of my box now that I've created. You can also try all the other views, left, right. Go ahead and work your way through those with your homework. Camera, standard views, and try them all. So I'm going to go back to front for now. There's parallel projection, which we'll worry about in a few weeks, but not now. Just make sure that it's not checked on when you're doing your homework. You want it checked off. It's fine that perspective is checked on. Don't mess with anything else in here. You could use Zoom Extents, except we've seen the button is here, the magnifying glass with the arrows pointing outward, and then we could zoom in using the magnifying glass by itself. There's a position of camera, walk around and look around. These are for our final finished product if we want to do a walk around view of the entire house as if we're the person who's coming outside in and what it would look like to be entering our space. Under draw, there's lines. We could draw a line and access that from there. I'm going to use my mouse right now. I use my center click to reposition myself. Notice that axes, this is kind of like in AutoCAD where you have the green line. Now don't confuse the green color that I'm talking about right now, but the straightness is snapping to one of these lines running parallel. So it could be green, or that means I'm going perfectly straight back, and this, while it looks like it's tapering, was a perfectly straight line that maintained its coordinate. Here I could click and go up, and if it's blue, matching this blue color, I'm going perfectly straight up. If I click here from the endpoint and go over and it maintains the red color, I'm matching the perfectly straight going over. Okay? In AutoCAD, we have X, Y, Z. In SketchUp, we have red, blue, green. Okay, so in AutoCAD we have letters, in SketchUp we have colors. The colors red, blue, green. All right, so I'll delete these guys out. So you saw I could go to draw, lines, line, and draw. Or I could type L and hit enter when I'm done, or escape, or click my select tool to get out. Or I could grab my pencil right from here and draw, because it's a pencil, and that's a really simple way to think about it. Ooh, look what happened there. All right, let's go back up to draw. You can draw arcs. You can do 2-point arcs or 3-point. If I click on 2-point and I start, and then I click another point, those 2 points define the outermost edges of my arc. So point 1, point 2 are the 2 rainbow type ends of my arc. Notice again, the arc is not perfectly curved. That's okay. That's the way it's supposed to be because it's a polygonal drafting system. Modeler, 3D modeler. All right. So we have these lines that make things up, these faces that are made by joining lines together, and you will also hear them refer to lines in the field and people who use this software as edges. And actually I myself mostly will be referring to them as edges more than lines when we're thinking of them in planes like this. I start saying, okay, this rectangle's edges. It's really interchangeable with lines, because lines make up the faces which create edges in planes for us. All right, so what happens, let's see if I'm ready for this. Let's keep going through the bars. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I've got time. So if I go into draw, we did arcs. Let's try a 3-point arc. 1, 2, 3. Oh, that was fun, wasn't it? So you're starting to see why SketchUp is so fun, right? I thought I was drawing my arc right here with this other arc flat on the ground. 1, 2, 3. But really, it's sloping up at an angle. Well, that's tricky. You have to be very careful that you're maintaining your access points if you want to be flat. So like I know right now if I do my third point back there on the green line and my other point here, then that's going to be flat because I made sure that my first point was going perfectly up on the green and around, and then it ended on the over coordinate that coordinated with that first point. So you have to maintain your planes in order for it to truly be flat. And you can imagine if you start drawing a wall that you think is flat and then you're in top view and you rotate down and it looks like this, life can get a little bit difficult for us. All right, don't want to scare you. Just be aware that now more than ever coordinates are going to matter and snapping to the right coordinates is more important than ever. Okay, so let's look under tools. We have an eraser, so let's draw something to erase. And I just can click escape. And then I'm going to come up here and here's an eraser, same thing, or under tools I can go to eraser and select my lines to erase. I'm just clicking on them. Now notice it only where that little circle is on my eraser is what actually erased the lines. I can't just use the back corner. It has to seemingly be right under the circle of the eraser. There's move, rotate, scale. It's the same as finding it out here. Move, rotate, scale, offset, outer shell, solid tools. We're not going to go into these for a couple more weeks. Tape measure we will use. So all of these first ones, select, eraser, paint bucket, move, rotate, scale, push, pull, offset, tape measure. Those are the ones that we're going to care about. They're all accessible out here. So here's where we have eraser, line, arc, rectangle, push-pull, offset, move, rotate, scale, measure, and then paint bucket eventually, and then all of our ways to control ourselves in space with panning, zooming, and orbiting. Okay, so edges. Now we're going to get into drawing shapes. If I was going to start drawing my wall, I need to be perfectly flat on the ground, right? My house is going to need a nice firm foundation. So let's say that it is a 4-foot wall. Notice when I type 4-foot marker, in the lower right-hand corner, I can see that I did indeed type that, and I can hit enter. So this should, in theory, be a 4-foot line. I'm not going to have you use dimensions in SketchUp, although there are. They just don't function the same way. This is meant to be a quick model, and as such, we use our tape measure a lot more. So I could check it. Yes, in fact, it's 4 foot, and I move on. You have to be accurate the first time you draw it because you're not going to have dimensions at hand in order to tell me what you did draw. I can figure a lot of it out by it not connecting, and I'm usually able to let you know your mistake. So if I have a wall, I'll need some thickness to it, and I need to stay on the red axis to know that I'm on the same plane as that point that was created by going back in the green space. So I'm going to come over 6 inches. And then I could draw a line by clicking on that endpoint, and it wants to match up, like show me a node that is directly across from the first point. And then I have to click on that endpoint again and connect the other one to finish out the base of my wall. Now that I've had the base of my wall, I have created with lines or edges this face. The gray face appeared after I created all of my lines. These 4 lines are considered what we call a closed loop. If I was to delete one of these lines, it will delete the face. You can only have a face if you have a closed loop. So what I need to do is as simple as grabbing my line tool by left clicking on the pencil, clicking the first point that's left open for me deleting that line, and clicking the second point, and it plops my face right back in. If you were to do something a little different, instead of deleting one of the edges, you were in fact going to delete a face, the same problem stands. You have effectively cut open the loop. Even though you can see these 4 edges, SketchUp doesn't know that you have a closed loop anymore because you've deleted the face that ties them together. In order to fix your mistake, you simply need to pick a side to close off again and close the loop. Are there any questions at this point? I know you're not going to have a lot until you try it yourself. Do double lines matter in SketchUp? Definitely not like they would in AutoCAD. You're never going to tell in modeling unless, nope, not if they're directly over each other. They wouldn't. So notice there is no double line though. I need you to understand that that wasn't a double line. Even though it said there was a line, once you deleted the face, it pretends, it's kind of like a weird algorithm, that there's only 3 lines here and you just need to close off one of them. Now if I do that, because there was already a face there, then there's 2 lines there. But it makes them one because there's only one face. It's really strange to think about and you'll get used to it. So you're not going to have stacked lines. Just imagine you have, if it's on the same plane in the exact same spot, it exists only as one thing. It's really weird. It's like, ooh. Okay, so we're drawing lines that are coplanar. They are on the same plane, so when I'm like this, they don't look like they're going up at an angle. When I look at it from below, I can see it rides this red axis, the green line going back, and the blue line, there's no height to it. Okay. So if I were to push-pull this up 3 inches, and notice I'm typing 3 in inches in the lower right-hand corner, and I hit enter. Let's measure it with our tape measure as we go. 3 inches, great. Now, these things are all on the same plane. So I don't want you to feel like I'm treating you like kindergartners, but it's just really getting into what we're doing here. So this is perfectly aligned. This point is on the same green axis. This point's on the same red axis as this, right? If I go like this, I don't see something up. So I know that this axis aligns going horizontally with this axis. Everything has to be on the right plane for this to work out. All right. So we talked about retracing an edge to close the loop, which will make our face reappear, so I can cross that off of my to-do list. Drawing a line all the way across a face divides it into 2, a line tool or drawing a face or a rectangle tool. So if I draw a line in the middle of here, you have effectively created now 2 faces. So where there was once one big rectangular face, there's now 2 faces. If I grab my selection tool, 1, 2. Before without this line, 1. That double face functions very differently than a single face. So let's say, for instance, I was clicked off of here and I click this tool, this line here that's dividing, and I needed a roof to this very tiny building that I've created 3 inches by 4 foot. I could click that center line, and because SketchUp is very special, if I click move and I come this way and I click the midpoint and I pull up, I have now created a building. Nothing in the world works like SketchUp works, okay? So because I picked that division of the faces, it then treated it as a peak point and let me pull it up because I pulled up about the blue axis using the one line that connected the 2 faces. All right, so it's a little different, I think. It's different for us to draw a line. Edit, undo, draw our line. What happens if we use our rectangle tool and divide it? So now I have this and I have this. Let's see if this still works the same way. It might. Okay, so that still works. And your rectangle tool could be a simpler version than trying to do all of these individual lines, but for your homework, I'm most likely going to tell you to do it as lines. I think until you get used to the idea that you're closing and opening shapes, I want you to see how that is created. So right now, look in the lower left-hand corner. It says select opposite corner or enter value. So I'm doing effectively the same thing as AutoCAD. I'm picking the two different, the width and the depth of this object. And then I can see the dimensions in the lower left-hand corner. So right now I know that going back is my longer 4-foot dimension, and I know that going over to the right is my 3-foot. So if I wanted this to go way back like this, I can watch how all that change is taking place. If I go over, it looks like it would be 2-foot by 4-foot. So let's see how we would type this in. And it is different in SketchUp to type in units than it is in AutoCAD. So first let's try one line before we get into a rectangle. If I click a point and I go back and I want it to be 1 foot, notice in the corner it's 1'3" something. There is no dash. That's because there is no dash. Do not ever put the dash, okay? If you put the dash, it thinks you're doing a new value. So like if I type 1 foot dash 6 inches, it's going to draw it at 6 inches. It won't draw it at 1 foot 6 inches. It's just going to be 6 because it chooses the last value after the dash. So as precise as you think you might be being, you're actually throwing SketchUp off. It just wants 1 foot 6 inches, no dash, and then it should draw what we want it to draw. Yes, I just overmeasured. See, it told me I overmeasured that much. So same thing with our rectangle tool. If I type in, I want a rectangle to be 2 foot, comma, 3 foot, enter. That's where I'm going to get, we can see it's going to go this way, 2 foot and back 3 foot. So then once you know that, if I wanted this to be a 6-inch by 10 foot in order to give me an overall wall, I could start drawing it, but I want to zoom in. Look how crazy that got, because like I started drawing it in here too zoomed out, and it might go down or up or over. So zoom in and be on your right axes. If I come in here and then I do 6-inch, 10 foot, I could have a really nice wall done in no time instead of doing a bunch of lines. And then if I know that my wall is 8 foot, I can grab my push-pull tool, which does height, click the center, type 8 foot, and I have a full wall. So it's a beautiful product. It just takes time to get used to making sure everything's lined up and snapped in place and on the right axis, and you have the right dimensions you want in the right format. So again, if I draw a line and it's 1 foot 6, look in the lower right, I'm going to type 1 foot 6 inches, enter, and that's the format we type. All right. If I draw a rectangle inside of a rectangle, you can see it functions differently too. So if I click move on a rectangle, it lets me move them individually for now. That might not always be true. If I click move on this one, it moves all of them. If I click move on the center one, it just moves the center one. So you can see it encompasses this rectangle. That's very different than this one that's inside of what's being encompassed. So you got to get used to playing with it. You have a full break and a very light homework load this week. Please just take the time to build things. That's like the best homework you could ever have. It's not your only homework. And your homework is due 2 weeks from now. So you do have a full week off, and then the due date is the 23rd. But take that time. You have nothing but time, right? I'm sure you don't have anything else to do. So if we use our push-pull tool on the center guy, I could pull him up 6 foot, enter. And I could pull this one up to make a small tower maybe. I could then push-pull this over, I could push-pull this up, I could push-pull this off to the side. Notice how free and easy and quickly we can change our models. Oh, look at that. What happened? I created a face division. So where I once had this nice box by itself because I crossed over this edge, the faces are now divided and I've come up with a completely different start than I had. Now there's a division and I could almost create my own box back to having one individual box. Isn't that crazy? Who's excited? Everyone's excited. All right, so drawing an edge splits things. It splits faces. That's what we need to think of that as. Our push-pull tool creates height. We can also bring things down. Things don't only go up. They can go over and out. So it also can create depth. But notice, for as many rectangles as I'm drawing and crossing, they still are lonely and empty on the inside. Gabe likes my personification of the boxes. All right, now empty in a weird way. Some of them, once they cross over, then you still have a full box underneath here where you might have thought it opened up on the interior because of the cross sections. So take your time to just play through some of these things. All right, points to snap. Okay, let me draw a circle. Maybe. Yep. Just had like a blank for a minute. Okay, so rectangle tool has a drop-down arrow that allows us to see rectangle, rotated rectangle, circle, and polygon. Remember, the circle really is a polygon. It's just like a bunch of edges in a way. So it's polygonal in line formation. This is a true polygon, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides. If I click on my circle, and I make sure it's on the blue, which tells me it's flat on the ground. Then let's take a look at it. I want to draw a line from the center. When I hover, it's like AutoCAD. It highlights blue when I'm really on the center, and it tells me you're on the center. If I click to the edge, I might get something that says end point. I might hit it in the right spot that it might say intersection. It's harder to get it to do that. Maybe, especially when I maybe I have to like make a couple other things. Midpoint. So we've seen end point, midpoint. Sometimes you can get, if I escape out, on edge, from point, on face. These are all called inferences. Where we have O snaps and snaps in AutoCAD, we have inferences in SketchUp. And these inferences are the same thing. So it's inferring to where we want to put our next point, and that may be a midpoint, an end point, an edge, a face, or an intersection. A midpoint, an end point, an edge, a face, or an intersection are all what we refer to as an inference point, where we would want to click next most easily to draw something of value. Okay. Enter after finishing command. Groups versus components. Triple click and double click. So I've added a video under the session. Do we end at 7:30? Please tell me we end at 7:30, right? It ends at 7:30, yeah. Okay, good. I always want to I don't want to end early. I just always feel like pressed for time in this class, but I've always got more time than I think I have. Okay, so I'm going to log into my iMeTech again. I've included a video called Groups and Components under your Session 8. I'm going to Class Sessions. 8, and then extra videos, double click, triple click. That's the one. Okay, so if you get to this point in the video and nothing is making sense, please watch this video, double click, triple click, explained, or it's going to have a link to the video within this document, but I'm pretty sure this just takes just the Word document with step-by-step instructions. So these are included for you. I'm going to do my best to explain it to you now, and I think with the time left, I'm going to show you what your homework is and then explain it that way. Okay? So let's do this in reference to your homework, your first project. So if we go back out to here and we go to Session 8, Homework and Quiz, we're going to see our rubric. So I tried to give some points for just trying. You know, it's a new software, but I also don't have time like I did with AutoCAD to let's meander in there for a while and draw easy things before we get our feet wet right away. Okay, so there'll be some free throwaway points for draw a circle. I click the circle tool. I know it's flat on the ground. I'm not even asking for it to be flat because that instruction wasn't in there. It wasn't spelled out for you, but I draw my circle. Woohoo! And then I go back. Okay, draw a rectangle. Drop down menu, grab my rectangle tool, draw a rectangle. Go back. Draw a freehand shape. That's where you take your line tool and you come in and you draw a freehand shape. All right, look at that. What? That's because I didn't take the time to snap it to my plane, but oh well, it's a freehand shape. Mrs. Green can figure it out. I'm going to come back in here and then I'm going to draw my 2-point arc. I had switched it to 3, so I need to make sure in my menu I select 2-point arc. And I click, I grab a point, and it has 2 starting points. That'll pass, kind of wonky, but oh well. I'm going to go back into my Word document, and then we're going to look at our advanced use, the good stuff. Well, we're missing a step, so we need to make sure that we can first import the exterior office floor plan from AutoCAD into SketchUp. All right. So I am, make sure that I have that file on here, which I may or may not. Hold on, I do have it. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a minute, okay? Think about questions if you really do have them while I'm here and I'm working through getting this file up. Radio silence. Sent items. Dang it. All right, I'm going to have to use your guys' file, so I hope your homework's good. Who's going to be the person I picked? All right, so if I go into my grade center, full grade center. Did everyone do okay with the drawing of the actual exterior office this week?
Just the floor plan, right?
Yep, just the floor plan.
Yeah, no problem. The only thing I accidentally drew windows.
Wait, you died off there. I could hear no problem and then you got real quiet.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
A little.
It was cool.
All right. Okay, I can share my screen again. I picked Caitlin Catanzarite. So she's my guinea pig. Usually I'm Shemaine, but I'm bored with that. It's time to be Caitlin. All right, so this is okay. And I'll zoom out. I want to find my little guy over here. Okay, good. We have him. I'm going to just take him for posterity's sake and separate him. Okay, so I'm going to do Control C, and then I'm going to go out and to the Start menu and do that Templates and find my Imperial model, Control V. And it doesn't want to bring it me because I didn't do it right. I did Control V last time. Control V into here so that it's all alone. Because anything in our AutoCAD file is going to come into our SketchUp file, and this is all I need. So if you have it all together, which you should, we need to just separate this guy out for exporting purposes and save him in a new file with Architectural Imperial like we do all of our other file setups, but by itself. I'm going to save this as exterior office to my desktop. Save as, find my desktop, exterior office, and then save. Okay, so now that exists, I can just close out of it for now. Thanks, Caitlin. And then I'm going to go in here, and this needs to be really, I'd appreciate it if you would save these in two separate files. These shapes, like put the shapes in a shape file portion, and then keep our house separate from all this junk. This is just practice. So send me a SketchUp file with your shapes and a SketchUp file with the house. So that won't be there. We won't have deleted it. It's just going to be in its own file. And then in here, is there a door? Yeah, no, there's no door yet. We're going to do that portion when we get into the SketchUp. So if I open a new file using my simple feet and inches with the green ground and the blue sky, I can go to File, Import, go to my desktop. Look down here, it says 3ds. We want this to be AutoCAD file DWG. Then my file will appear, Exterior Office, Import. All right, and then here it is in all of its glory. So you'll notice when you come in here, we have all of our clickable walls. It should have come in like a nice block, but if not, sometimes it'll come in as like a solid block and you have to explode it. So it's okay if it doesn't. What I want you to do is rotate this using your rotate tool if it comes in this way. There's two ways to go about this. And you make sure that it's blue when you rotate it. Pull it up until it snaps and you see the green axis. Only if it's this direction. What I'm getting at is I want it to be positioned this way. Then you can reselect everything and use your move tool. You're really used to these tools. Zoom in all the way to find the endpoint and put that endpoint right here in the origin. Okay, this is how I want it oriented for everyone. I know I said it didn't matter in your CAD file, but I think for communication purposes in here for now while we draw it, it should all be oriented the same way in here. So whatever you have to do to rotate, you just use the rotate. Make sure you're snapping to the green and the red. It should initially be a blue circle when you start spinning it. But this is how it should be rotated, and you snap it to endpoints, use your move and rotate tools. Once you have it in place like this, let's go back and review our homework. So I've successfully imported 10 points for me from AutoCAD. Now what I need to do is make the following layers: north wall, east wall, south wall, west wall. So let's just see, how do we create a layer, right? One, it seems like it's repetitive once we get it done. Well, I lost my guy, so I need to come to Window, Default Tray, Show Tray, because that's where my layers live. I have all this junk closed because I just want to focus on this. Notice that, this is fun, whatever whatever you put the layers down as for this project inside your CAD file, it comes with all of those layers. I don't want any of those. I want you to delete all of them out but layer 0. Okay, so just go through and delete them. There's also a button called Purge, but it's only going to purge so many of them. You could do that to save time. And then, yep, click this and delete core layer as well. We're starting from scratch. To add a new layer, it's the plus Add Layer button. And I have north wall. Click off, add a new layer, south wall, all the walls and other layers that it asked for. Got to spell south right. Click off. Okay, so continue on for that portion of your homework and create the layers. You don't need to assign them colors. You just need to create the layers and name them appropriately. That's another easy 10 points. We need slab, pillars, outdoor kitchen, furniture, and all of the directions of the walls. Then for 40 points, using the floor plan, make the walls of each face of the house a group. Use triple click, double click. Put the group on the wall layer of the direction it faces. This means you will have a group of north wall on the north wall layer, a group of south wall on the south wall layer, and so on and so forth. Walls are 8 foot high. We are not drawing windows and doors this week. Okay, at this point, I'm going to open up my own model because I want us to draw it as close as possible. So I'll show you what you're shooting for. Let me make sure this save as class to desktop. Save. Hopefully it'll let me do them both since I'm opening it from a... Okay. So here's the exterior office that we're going to be drawing in this class, and then you're going to be filling in all the furniture and some of the space planning on the interior of it. Notice that I have all of these layers, exterior walls, interior walls, but then here's east wall, west wall, south, and north. These are the ones you're creating this week, and slab. There'll be other ones we'll create later. If I turn my roof off, and notice visibility is like AutoCAD, so I have a roof layer, and if I uncheck the roof, now I don't see the roof, which is nice. I can see down in and see all the walls from each side. If I double click into this group, I can see my individual walls. When I click on just this wall, it'll say up here west wall. If I click on this wall and all of its pieces, it says north wall. If I click on these, this will say west wall. This one says south wall, so on and so forth, okay? I'm going to try and have you create it as closely to mine, so be looking at this in the video. It gives you an idea of like where I'm cutting my walls. I'm going to cut the farthest ends all the way down. So ours is really going to be oriented like this, and then I'm going to cut a line here and here and here, and I'll show you that in the actual model to make those first two walls. So I need to create a closed loop. I also need to have a point. So if I create a line up like that, we don't want that because it's now made one giant thing that I'm going to push pull up. So like I get this whole side, and I don't want that. I want everything divided out so I can control it when I go to do my elevations. So I'm going to edit, undo, draw line. Let me check this really quick. Okay, I just want to make sure it's mostly exploded. Okay, so then if we were to come in here and draw a line here, but then draw a line here and draw a line here, that should have separated this out to be its own face. Okay, so now it's its own thing, and I can triple click it. I really think this needs to be exploded, so hold on. If I select all of this, Okay, so it thinks it's exploded because explode isn't an option. Okay, so let me try to do it this way. This is interesting to me because I've already done this from scratch, and it wasn't this easy. So it might be Caitlin's drawing was different than mine, and so it's putting it all together. But I'm gonna try to do it like if I'm you. So this is kind of good. So I've created this wall. Let's see if I pull this up 8 foot then, because it's its own deal, and then triple click it. So up 8 foot, enter, and then triple click. Okay, so it's not working like I want it to do because of the model. So edit, undo, draw line, edit, undo, draw line, edit, undo. Why is it, Caitlin? Is it that one of these walls is like a full wall? What if I delete this one? So I'm going to come over 6 inches and then down. And it just wants to keep creating the whole loop, but I can't explain why it wants to create the whole loop. Yeah. All right. So this is like, but it really doesn't like this model space. So why does it want to connect it? Sorry, guys. This is like a strange thing I've never encountered before, that it wants to create her whole drawing as one thing as opposed to a bunch of lines, which I had no trouble with earlier, but I'd rather figure it out now. Let me try something different. Import, drawing, AutoCAD, exterior office, close. Okay, I'm going to make it a group first, and then I'm going to explode it and see if that works. Okay, so then if I drew a line from here to here, it still wants to. That is the darndest thing. Well, maybe this is easier. Maybe I can save us some even more time if it's going to be like this. That'd be nice. I might show you 2 ways just in case, and because we're pressed for time. So if I had it like that, which would be great in a way, I could technically pull it all up. I want to say this will work out for me. It's been a while when I have to think about it this way. So 8 foot. Okay, so now I have all my walls at 8 foot. I have this in here that I would have wanted to close. So let's undo. So wherever there's a gap, like a hole and window, instead of having a gap like this, it'll actually be easier on your mind if you close it for this week. So close it by drawing all those lines through and closing those loops. Okay, and then you can go out and delete extra information that got added in by closing them. Okay. And really, we could delete this door, but keep the 2 lines as references. Okay, so now if I push-pulled this whole thing up, fine, I'll delete them. I'm like really reluctant to, because I'd rather have it be a clean model, but delete, delete, and this will be okay. It'll all work out. Don't panic that I'm deleting them. Kind of be good for later, actually. So if we pull it all up, 8 foot, I just want to be sure that I can divide it out at some point. So I had my wall going here to here. And if I can't get this tonight for some reason because of how our model came in, Is someone else trying this in your own home? Because I want to see if it's like the norm that it's coming in this way or if it's going to be the exception. I can't see the chat. I don't have it open. Oh, Caitlin says her drawing will always have issues. No, Caitlin, it's not that. It's just usually like, I'm trying to think if there's anything different that you could have done that would make it come in and think it's a group, but it's not really a group. I have never had this problem before. So I can't triple click. So what I'm trying to show is if I create an object, like a wall, okay, just like that, and I then either while it's like this, I triple click it, it selects everything, all the 4 lines and the face. So let's get at least through the methodology of this. If I push pull that up, and right now while it's its own thing, I triple click it, it selects all of the sides and the edges, all the faces and the edges. And this is a good time then because it's the whole wall that I want. Let's pretend this was this full wall and I want it to be on its own layer. It's a good time for me to make this a group after I triple click it. If I had a rectangle that was a wall and I double click it, it will initially select it, but it won't always give me every single piece like that. So like sometimes it might make a group, sometimes it'll just be a selection tool. Double click is mostly used to get into a group more than just simple selecting. So like if I double click on this item, I can get into it to edit it. So now that I'm in the group, notice I don't have to deal with this noise out here. I can just work on one wall at a time because I made it a group. So I can make it longer or thicker. And then when I'm done, I double click to get out. Double click to get in, double click to get out, triple click to select every piece of it. Okay, so those are the things you have to know about the tools and how they function. Why I want this wall to be separate is if I could triple click it and not have it connected, I could put that on its own wall, put that on its own wall, and it would be a fairly simple process. So I'm going to delete this one more time and give it a one more fresh start. So file, import, exterior office. Definitions, polylines, layers, close. Okay. So I'm trying to think if there's like a workaround for it that's not going to end up closing these shapes for us. But I just can't see any except for maybe deleting some of these lines for now. But it still seems to want to close things. So I can go to an endpoint there, an endpoint here. Okay, so it's just going to have to be that way. We're going to have to delete a few interior things in order to separate these out into nice clean groups. So now when I triple click though, will it try to take the whole model? It still does. So okay, if I triple clicked and made sure I was only on that. I just want to triple click it until it only gets that, and then I want to make it a group. Okay, then I double click to get into that group and I can modify just that wall. Type 8 foot for the height, and there's my first wall for your homework assignment. Okay, and notice how it's cutting though. That's really important. I cut it here and here so that it creates this whole wall. And the same thing this side, I'm going to cut here and here to create this whole piece. So now that I've created my wall though, when I click on this group, notice it says it's on layer 0. I need to put it on my north wall layer. Okay, so if I click off of it and I click a different line, this line is on core, which I don't want to, I'll delete that out layer. If I click on this wall, I can check that yes, it is on the north wall layer. So wall 1 is done. What I had to do to get there was delete out wall 2 and back here so that it create this wall. Okay, then notice because I had to create those cut lines, if I double click in, there's like these messy lines. Because it's a whole face and everything's good, I can just delete those out and my face stays intact. Okay, so then I can come out by single clicking and I'm back into my model. So now I'm going to create this bigger wall over here, and I have enough references by deleting these out that it shouldn't hurt anything. So I could delete this guy. And then I'm going to come through and finish out this line. So zoom in, red axis has to be showing up. Click this hole, red axis is showing up. Click this hole, red axis is showing up. And now I have a full wall. I'm going to triple click. Okay, I don't want that, so I just triple click again, it looks like, twice through. And then I'm going to make that a group by right clicking, make it a group so it's its own thing. I'm going to double click to only be dealing with that wall. I'm going to push and pull. I'm going to drag up my mouse and type 8-foot enter, and there I have my other wall. Okay, so this should all be oriented though the way that I showed it in the beginning. I know it's got a little cattywampus, but when we start, we're just going to have it so like the front of the house is here with this pillar in the origin. Okay, and now that I've created this wall and it's a group, that would make it in our model. So if I'm in a model and I start in SketchUp, really it's going to be north, south. No, yeah, it's giving me a minute. I think it's north, south, east, west. And then, yep, never eat shredded wheat. No, never eat shredded wheat. Yep. Sorry, guys. I'm having one of those days. So anyway, that will be the positioning. This closest to us on the origin and this back wall furthest away. And then we'll put them all on their different layers. So I can put this on the north, not this one, like I was saying. So I'm sorry it's getting so messy. I can do a redo of this that I can post for homework, just of this portion of it. Do we have your model that you can download? Nope, absolutely not. You are not getting my model until you build it yourself, because it would just be too easy to steal and not do your work. So I know that's not the intention and that you could look at it, but you're working from the floor plan, so like I'll give you an overview of like the top, so like a nice top screenshot that you can see like this, or if you want me to post a PDF like this, Sam, I could do that. So I'll write that down. I'll post a PDF of the top view, and then you can see all these like clear cut lines to create this as its full wall over here. This is a wall, this is a wall, this one. Yeah, I know, I know, but yeah, it's too easy to just then like secret. It'll look exactly the same when you're done, so I'd never know. But you do have the boathouse model that you can use for the other class. It's just this one I can only post a PDF, but that's a good point to just have a nice reference. I will do that for you. Okay, so we're doing only the exterior walls for this week, not the interior walls, unless you want to. You might as well, in my opinion, while you're in there doing it. But if we were to start from scratch in a cleaner way, now that I've given you the instruction, I'm going to like fly through it, okay? So, nope, I'm not going to save this guy. File, no. Nope. So I am going to delete my guy because he's nothing but trouble. I'm going to go to import. I'm going to click exterior office that I've created as its separate file. I'm going to close this. I see that my origin isn't right because I want you all to have this pillar right here in the origin. So I'm going to select by clicking and dragging a window. So I clicked one point here and then dragged to the opposite side. And then I'm going to rotate the two arrows that look like they're rotating. I'm going to rotate it by pulling up until I see this green dashed line and click. Then I'm going to click. I always like click this arrow to get out of stuff when I'm not sure about it. Then I'm going to select it again and move it about this point. to this origin point. It's snapped in successfully, and now I have it set up how I want it for homework with the pillar in the origin. That means that this wall up here is going to be our north wall. Standard views, front. So our front, when you go to front, it's going to show you the front of the building with the kitchenette in here and the front door here. Okay, so we're going to call this north, we're going to call this south, and we're going to call this east and west. Right? Am I reversing east and west? I am, aren't I? Am I having like a weird night? Oh, really? I'm not even kidding. Like, I feel like my brain is shutting off. Okay, so anyway, you set up all your layers, and you come in here and purge, which will get rid of a lot of your AutoCAD junk. You'll probably have more than Caitlin. And then you're going to delete this, okay? Delete space planning because I don't need it, and delete title block. You're then going to create your north wall, so on and so forth. You're going to create your east wall. You're going to create your west wall. I don't know, it just doesn't look right. Okay, then she had issues with it being north on top, south on bottom, west and east. Yep, okay, feels weird. So then we had issues with these connecting. You're gonna have to delete something, it's gotta give. So I'm saying delete some of these horizontals out, and then you're gonna click your line tool and continue the lines here. It has to be on the green line, enter, because green goes back. Grab this, click the endpoint, click the wall, green goes forward, and then I'm going to 1, 2, 3, triple click. It wants the whole house. 1, 2, 3, triple click until it gets just that. I'm going to then make it a group. Then once it's a group at this point, or whenever you want to do it, that's when you can put it on its layer. So if this is my west wall, I'll click west wall. What's really important is that we're consistent in putting the walls on the different sides that they go with. So then once I create him and he's on a layer, or vice versa, in here we could put him on a layer, I'm going to make him the height by using my push-pull, 8 foot, enter, and then I could come through with my selection tool and delete out my messies. Delete, delete. I could click off and click on something different to see a different layer to definitely make sure this is on west wall, and it is. You're going to do that all the way around the house, and I will post a PDF of my cut lines. This is the quick and clean version of what I was doing for homework. And notice how fast that can be. So it can be really fast. It just took a little bit of messy. So that was the last. It's a 7:18 timestamp, which means if we talk through a few more things, you want to go, 15-ish minutes back and then some into our video to get to the clean version of the homework explanation. Never eat soggy wheat. Yeah, I do shredded wheat, but it still threw me off because I was like, never eat shredded wheat. I don't know. Okay, so you could continue. That means though, if we were to draw this wall, remember we got to delete off this little horizontal because otherwise it's going to fill in this whole L. Watch. I'm closing a loop that it already knows exists, and it finishes my L. I don't want that. So remember to delete this little portion here. Be thinking about the horizontals that are going to want to finish your loops while you do them. Okay, let's talk about this guy. So like you will want to just draw this whole thing wherever the cut lines are. I can't remember off the top of my head if it was right here or not, but like when you close this off, make sure that you include the door space and all of this window space, and we're going to do it as one wall. I need to close this off too, and then delete out my extra junk. Let's see if this goes smoothly once we delete out the door. So anything left in here when I try to push pull is going to pull in segments, right? Because there's faces. So I might have to delete out a lot more, like even that little triangle cut out. wants to come with my tool. So I'm going to delete it by selecting it with the mouse and then clicking it and I'm clicking delete on my keyboard, or you could erase. Beep boop, boop boop. Same thing. Kind of obnoxious actually. I like click and delete because I know I'm right on top of it. And then we know that we want it to be this full wall, and once we get a full wall, and this one wall already had been created, that's where we can push-pull this whole wall up in a clean movement. All right, so notice something that happened there. I don't know if any of you saw it, but I like accidentally grabbed the bottom of that box and now it's gray. It's a nasty thing. So like be careful. If I undo the push-pull and I select it from the top, let's see if I can get it to be white. And if I can't, we're going to invert the box. Okay, ugh, I hate it when they're gray. Intersect reverse faces. Bam. I have a thing about gray walls, but let's see. Fine, we'll leave it as it is. I think it's just a shadowing thing, but it's really obnoxious today. Oh, no, that was fine. It took all these ugly lines with it, though, all the intersections, so you have to do the same thing. Now I want to show you. I skipped a step. If you ever skip a step, so like say you didn't group them, what happens? That's more important. So I never made this a group by triple clicking and just getting these things. So now it's going to be like impossible because I didn't do it in the first step when it was one little group flat on the ground and it's trying to connect to all these other things, so that's annoying. The other thing is the more deeply I don't do that, so then I'm like, okay, I drew my group here and completed a wall here. So this is a nice clean rectangle. It might let you triple click it, but then you like push pull it up some or whatever, and then you go to triple click. It's letting you. There's going to get a point where you get too deep, and then you're like can't select just one thing. You can't select just this group anymore. It's all one solid thing, and it's become its own entity. We have to keep it separate or the geometry starts running together, and it gets really messy. So once you can't just triple click, then guess what? I have to click every individual thing by holding like Control plus or Command if I'm a Mac person, and selecting each part of the wall as opposed to getting a full wall, every piece in every line. And that means every piece in every line, because if I'm doing this and then I hit Control and I select this, I do not have the edge selected. I have to select the edge as well. So it's a bunch of work. We want to put them all on their own little layers and keep walls as walls, doors as doors, those kind of things separated from each other. We also want to make sure we can get back into delete out some of these lines without it deleting multiple faces and blending together, but it's okay for now. It's hard to like make a messy thing, to show a messy thing. You'll experience it, I'm sure, for homework at some point. Something will not actually end up going on the axes, and it'll be like this. And you'll connect your shape, and you'll be like, what? That didn't look anything like that. If we do inner walls, what layers should they go on? So interior walls, I just put them on interior walls because it's not going to be enough substance to affect your elevations at this point. You could do bathroom walls if you want to be more specific. So you're just giving me all the walls for homework, and that's plenty. On top of drawing shapes, it'll be a good intro into SketchUp. And think about it, that's like such a huge portion of that house. Then we just have to cut out the openings and add a roof. And you saw when I did that rectangle, right? If it's really that easy and the roof is divided up into sections, you know, we're going to create a roof. Let's do it. Hopefully it's going to be super simple like I made it look that first time. And we just make a roof. So if it's as simple as I'm showing it, right, this is going to be fun. And hopefully kind of a nice break from AutoCAD. Something different. All right, let me take a look for a minute at my GoToMeeting. people. So I don't see any more questions in the chat. I want to make sure. Okay, yeah. So Devin is missing. Who do I have here? I have Brianne, Caitlin, Cassie, Shemaine, Ellen, Emily.
Where's she at?
Yeah, Emily, where you at? Heather. You don't answer Gabe's texts. Kate Lair. She doesn't even answer my call across the internet. Lauren, Liz, Madeline, and Omar, and Patricia. Wow, there's so many of you. Samantha and Julia, sorry. Okay, so, oh, Emily says she'll text you in a minute. She has a life with kids. She can't be here every 10 seconds for us. All right, so we have Devin and I think Layla was here earlier. Layla. Okay, so like I said, quizzes based on video, and I've hit all of them. They're not tricky questions. Anything that was really important I highlighted, and you can watch the video again maybe for homework, and then after you complete your homework this week, take the quiz, and you'll be kind of used to using the software, and having listened to the video again, it'll help reinforce it. Okay, guys, let's go. We're all going to break from here. If you have any other questions, you can send me an email or a text, and I will get back with you. I hope this is going to be a fun thing. Enjoy your break, right? Take a break. This is due the 23rd. So you have a full week. It's not like 108 where we're hitting crazy deadlines. If you want to get ahead, you totally can. Good luck, everybody. Hey, Trisha, what was your thing that you needed help with? I don't get email here unless I'm on the student computers. It's so weird. So,
Oh, okay. So I sent that email a couple days ago or last night. I don't know when I sent the one, but today when I text messaged, I was really struggling with a number of things, and I have about 7 questions, and I'm just too exhausted to even go into them. So the question is there a chance, if this is my only chance, and I think you're teaching a class now anyway, so maybe it's not good, but when would be a chance that I could talk with you about some of these?
I mean, there's a good time tomorrow. When,
Okay.
like, are you pretty flexible with time tomorrow? Because
I think so. I think I might be.
Because when Hunter sleeps, then I can, and that's like 3 hours. So it's usually somewhere like 10:30, 11 to noon, like 1:32, somewhere in there, like from 10 to 2 is usually where that falls.
Okay. So sometime in there, should I send you a text to see if it's a good time? Now, can you do the same thing where can you do the thing like a go to meeting so that you could actually look at my screen? Okay.
Yep, I take it all.
All right. So maybe the little bit later time frame, halfway through or something, because so if it's 10 to 2, like more like noonish or something, so give me a chance to do a little bit more trial and error on some of the stuff.
All right, if it has to do with leader lines, just don't try anymore, and we'll talk about it, because enough people talked to me about that already.
Okay, one does, and one is like just maneuvering things within the viewport.
Okay, that you can try out a little bit, but the leader line, we'll try together.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, talk to you tomorrow.
Bye. Bye. Anybody else want to make appointments? All right, guys, you can really go.